Austin Parsons, Pitmaster with Smoky Mountain Q in Nashville, Tennessee, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike your match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
And welcome to the really big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evenings, a live fire fun and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, the BBQ Central Show.com. And here's what's happening on the show this evening. Coming up in about 12 minutes from now, the quarterly visit from the officially unofficial cigar expert of the Barbecue Central Show, Mr. J from the Cigar Authority podcast / live show, joins us as he does every 3 months. So we'll talk to Mr. J about what's smoking good at Two Guys. We'll also talk about what happened at the latest version of the cigar trade show. I believe it's called PCA. And we'll get some other cigar insights as well. Look at this. Terry Heil stopping by to say a quick hi. You should follow Terry if you want any local insight to sports, professional, collegiate, or scholastic, which I believe is the highfalutin word of high school. Or if you would like a different national take on professional sports, tune in to Terry Heil's Talkback Fans Sports Show, which is live right before my show on Facebook. So give Terry a follow and check out his take on the world of sports. Also watching tonight, guests from last week, Bobby and Quentin. Whoa! As I've said before, and I'll say it again, is there nothing better to do at 9 p.m. on Tuesday in Florida than watch this show? But I guess not. Maddie did it. Marley's done it. Bobby's now done it. That's all three. I got no more than that. But I'll take all the audience that I can possibly get. So happy to have everybody tuning in and checking out the show for however long you do it. And if it's only a matter of moments, make sure that you're subscribing to the podcast so you can listen to the whole thing at your convenience, because that's how most people do it. Anyway, Mr. J leading the show this evening. Then after Mr. J, after a month off, he's back and better than ever, our pal Robert Moss. And you know what we're talking about tonight. We were going to do it last month, but I believe Robert was in Spain. Is that a place? Spain? We were going to be talking about ham. A whole segment on ham, if you can believe. But we couldn't do it last month. We are punting to this month. We have the ball in hand. We are ready to rock and roll for the ham segment. Not pressed ham, none of that. Real live ham talk. I'm not going to go ham or anything like that. Well, maybe Robert will say something crazy and I will go ham, as the kids say. But we have a lot of ham talk to get to, I can tell you that. And that'll bring a close to the first hour. Then we'll move to the second hour and 14 past. The second hour will bring our pal, former Tennessee embedded correspondent, but still my pal, and Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, Steve Ray, will make an appearance to talk about last weekend's Major League Eating event in Knoxville, Tennessee, I believe it was, or somewhere thereabouts, where a barbecued bologna eating competition took place with none other than the likes of the reigning mustard belt hot dog eating champion Joey Chestnut, who has appeared on this show no less than 2 times. Not recently, but he has appeared no less than 2 times right here on this show. We'll talk to Steve about what it was like being a media member at this kind of star-studded event, what it was like to hang out with Jaws himself, plus get to meet in person some of the other very famous competitive eaters that Steve has had on his show. I have billed Steve as the authority podcast on Major League Eating, competitive eating, whatever the hell you want to call it. But Steve has somehow found a niche relationship with some of the most prolific competition eaters of the day. And a lot of them were there at the at the smoked bologna or barbecued bologna event in Tennessee. So Steve Ray, 14 past the second hour, and then to close the show this evening, I will be trying to figure out where did the show go wrong? How have I soured an industry that I have tirelessly covered, promoted, wanted to see great things happen for? But something has changed. Something is awry. Something is afoot. And I will make a special example of how that is as we get to 35 past the second hour. So that's how the show is laying out here this evening. Mr. J, Robert Moss, hour 1, Steve Ray, and then your humble host, hour number 2. Don't forget you can follow me socially, Instagram, the Twitter, TikToks, the Snappy Snaps, and the LinkedIns, all with the handle at BBQ Central Show. We also say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show, where Terry and Bobby are watching. Or you can watch over on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show, where we do have a new YouTube poll question of the week. And we're asking everybody this. Would you rather have deep dish or thin crust pizza? And not 30 seconds ago, it was 100%. And now 57% of you are saying that you would rather have thin crust pizza. By the way, thin crust pizza people are exactly right. A deep dish pizza only shows that you're a tourist, and it only shows that you tourist in Chicago, where they fool you into thinking that that is the city's most famous pizza, while all along they're snickering and pointing behind your back because they're going to Parlor Pizza and a number of these other really great pizza establishments in Chicago, where they also enjoy either thin crust pizza or bar pie pizza, which is also very thin, more cracker crusted, but cut into squares, even though it's a round pizza. Tavern cut, I believe is what they call it. And then they take that round pizza and then cut it into squares instead of triangles. Those Chicago people are on the ball. Chicago, it's my kind of town, and their pizza is great. And that town is great, and I go there when it's freezing cold, and we have a great time, and I would go there when it's warmer, but I never think to go there when it's warmer, and that's my fault. That one's on me. So I wanted to mention a few companies who sent me unsolicited free shit, and we all know rule number 3 of the show. If it's free, it is me. We want to thank our pals over at ThermoWorks for a brand new Thermopen. It is cold down here, 66 degrees, 67 degrees. It's warming up. down here in the basement. That's why I have the heater going and I have the sweatshirt on because it is freaking cold. And somebody from their promo team reached out and said, do you want something free? And I said, yeah, I'll always take a free Thermopen. Always take a free Thermopen. Also, we want to thank the folks over at Anova for sending me a new sous vide. I've had the same sous vide thing that looks like a bread machine, square, holds water. This is where sous vide has been at for like the last 15 years. But no, I can't keep up with the times. And the good folks over at Anova reached out and said, are you interested in either talking about or trying one out? I said, send that sous vide thing right over here. Rule number 3 of the show applies on that as well. There's one other thing I'm going to get to either in tonight's show or next week, but that'll just stay right over here. But we thank Anova. Yeah. And we thank ThermoWorks, which makes the Thermopen right here. I think I have 3 of these in the utensil drawer now. You can't have enough. By the way, even though it comes calibrated and they're $90 a piece and all that good stuff, don't sleep. Once a month, boil the water, stick the thermometer in the boiling water. If it's not reading 212, you need to make your adjustments as necessary, up or down. Remember, water boiling at 212. Yes, you can do the ice test too, but not nearly as fun as boiling water. Don't watch the water boil. Takes longer to boil. If you watch, it's very self-conscious, that water. All right, before we get to Mr. J, let's learn about my favorite cooker because it is, I guess, springtime, soon to be summer number 2 of the Summer of Primo. It is a ceramic cooker. It is oval. It is a fuel miser. It is, in my opinion, and they pay me to say it, but I also truly believe it all the way down into the subcockle region of my heart, that Primo is the best ceramic cooker that you can get on the market. How do I know this? Simply this. Go to their factory. Go to the big kiln that they have there, where they line up all the other ceramic cookers in the kiln. Close the doors, turn on the kiln, and then after the firing process is over, they open it up, and guess what? All the other grills have melted or blown up. They can't handle the heat. The Primo, however, standing tall amongst them all. That is what I'm talking about. The American manufacturing, yes. Is it the cheapest thing out there? No. Buy the best and only cry once. Only sold through dealers. Go to primogrill.com to find out where that might be. It's patented. It's the best ceramics. It's oval. You know you want it. Make it the Summer of Primo for you too. We can do it together. We'll live stream our cooks together and share. We're back with Cigar Talk. Mr. J back for quarterly visit number 2 in 2026, which is rapidly coming to a close. Stand by. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Welcome back. YouTube commenting sensation Jason Pettis saying this is the toughest poll choice ever. Disagreed, but you're allowed to think that, Jason. 2 or 3 emails just shot in that 38-second break. What is rule number 3 of the show? What's rule number 2 of the show? What's rule number 1 of the show? They must be new fans. Maybe we'll do a review of rules of the show in the open next week, but we have much bigger fish to fry here this evening. Joining me now, my first guest this evening, a well-known figure in the cigar community, one of the co-hosts of the very popular Cigar Authority show / podcast, and making his second quarterly appearance here in 2026 to talk about the latest news and trends in the cigar industry is the Barbecue Central show's very own official cigar expert, Mr. J, joining us once again. What's up, Mr. J?
What's happening?
We have a YouTube poll question of the week. According to Jason Pettis, it happens to be the hardest one I have ever asked, and that's saying something because I've been asking these for years and years. But we ask the authority on pizza and cigars, Mr. J. Would you rather have deep dish or thin crust?
It's thin crust and only thin crust.
Yes. Now, would you really eat pizza or not? Not at all.
I had a slice of pizza, which is a complete and utter violation of what should be called pizza. We went to Monster Trucks on Sunday, and there was a little gluten-free pizza place, and the kids are gluten intolerant, so I sent the lady in with the money, and they got the pizza, and I had the last 2 slices. Wasn't bad. It was thin. It was crunchy. Almost 0 flop. I think I could give it a 7.8 on the pizza scale.
Pretty high score. 1 bite, of course.
Everybody knows the rules.
Who is the lady? What does that mean? I sent the lady.
My girl. Yeah, I struggle with. Yeah, I struggle with the term girlfriend. I hate it.
What would you rather call her?
Let's go with my person.
My chick. How about that? Let's bring it back.
All right, I can get with that.
Yes,
I can get with that.
Jonathan's chick gets the money and buys the pizza. We love it. All right, let's lead every segment as we lead every segment when we have Mr. J on. What is smoking well at Two Guys right now?
Nicaragua is so hot, not only with the stuff that's been out for the last couple of years, but with the new stuff that's going to drop in the next few weeks. It's Nicaragua as thin crust pizza is pizza. Nicaragua is cigars right now.
What is it that is that great about Nicaragua? If we're comparing it to what I'll call the big 3, so you got Nicaragua, you got Honduras, you got Dominican. What makes Nicaragua the best?
Nicaragua has 4 very distinctly different growing regions that allow blenders that are growing tobacco in that country. It allows them at their fingertips to have a variety of flavors, because people talk about, oh, this has Corojo 98 or Criollo 99 or Habano 2000. The seed strain tells the plant how tall to grow and how wide to grow. It does not give the plant its flavor. When you talk about growing Corojo, authentic Corojo in Honduras, they are engineering the soil to be as perfect for that plant as possible. And the soil gives that tobacco its flavor. You could grow Connecticut broadleaf in that soil and you'd have a similar flavor profile, although you'd have watered down flavor because broadleaf would grow very wide leaves. There's a comedy of errors that could happen by growing the wrong seeds in the wrong soil. But when you're really just looking at the very basics, soil is everything, and seed strain dictates height of the plant and width of the leaves. So Nicaragua gives you a lot of options to blend something that's interesting and have it be a Nicaraguan Puro.
You have any idea what percentage of all of the cigars are a Nicaraguan grown or a Nicaraguan leaf in the industry?
Nicaragua is hovering between 40 and 45% of the cigars brought into the United States.
That's a big number, I think.
It's a big number. Yeah. They're number one. I mean, they overtook Dominican Republic maybe 8 years ago, and they maintained that number one status.
Let's look at the most recent 2026 is at the PCA trade show. So the industry trade show, if you're in an industry of any sort, typically there's some kind of annual event. It's a get together. Anybody in the industry show. For me, it's truck shows. There's a lot of truck stuff. World of Concrete, Con Expo, the Mid-American Truck Show, blah, blah, blah. All the OEs and anybody that's selling to an OE or anybody aftermarket is doing their best to showcase their wares, get business, and showcase what's new. What's happening at a tobacco or a premium cigar expo?
Single Cask Nation is about to drop their fourth barrel aged release. This is a coming out of peated barrels. I haven't had a sample, but their other three that they dropped were nothing short of amazing. Perdomo has the father and son collaboration that drops next week. Crux had their Marblehead late last year, and now they have the Maduro version that just launched at the show. We picked up some of the Dominion lines, which I've had a couple samples. Stellar, also out of Nicaragua. And McAuliffe showed a new bundle brand at the trade show, and there's talks of a new color being orange. So it's going to be an exciting year for lower price cigars, meaning sub $20. And really, what we're looking for is to get under $12 with new stuff that's coming in.
Give me a take on Crux.
He's a younger guy, really has a good handle on how to showcase his product. So in his boxes of one of his newer lines, Epicure, you have one half of the box is singles, the other half of the box is 2 5-packs, and you have 3 different pricing structures, and you get a little bit of a better break as you get deeper into the pricing structure. So let's say the single is $12, you buy it by the 5-pack, and you're getting your cigars down to $11, and you buy them by the box, and they're down in the $9.90 range for a box of 20. His new one with the Marblehead is set up similar. It's a entire brick of 20, and then there's a section for the 5-pack and a section for the singles. And again, you get your breaks along the way, but it displays well. It doesn't take up a metric shit ton of real estate, and it draws the eye because it doesn't get lost in a sea of brown. You know, if someone comes out with another chocolate brown cigar and you put it next to Padron, no one's ever going to see it.
Let me ask you this question. I asked Amanda McAuliffe on, maybe if it wasn't the last time, it was the time before. I said, I as a very new guy into cigars, I originally cared about a box. And then quickly I said, these things seem to accumulate. I'm a box buyer. If I like it, I'll just buy the box, save the money, blah, blah, blah. Makes sense to me. But quickly I'm accumulating boxes. I'm not going to stick change in a box or thumbtacks or try and keep them around for some kind of nostalgia 20 years down the road. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this is kind of a pain in the ass. Do you think from a retailer's perspective, if you were just allowed to have boxes in retail, but if you were going to be buying boxes as the consumer, it was only bundles or 20 wrapped in a thing of cellophane or rubber banded or whatever the hell, would that be better for the industry from a cost and some other aspects, or would that hurt the industry not having the box?
Well, it depends on how you frame the purchase with the consumer. If the savings are being passed along, so people don't realize the manufacturer pays almost the same amount to ship the box as they do the cigars in the box. So just from a shipping standpoint, they can ship twice as many cigars for the same amount of money. Now, if the consumer has the choice, you can have, we'll call it the dress box, Perdomo 10th anniversary with the gold foil and the Tiffany, not Tiffany blue, but the royal blue ribbon around the outside. You can have the dress box. Here's the price. Or you can save an extra 5 points and you take it in a bundle. 99% of the time, the consumer's taking the bundle to save the extra 5 points because you're going to smoke the cigars anyways. And to your point, what are you going to do with all these boxes? I mean, I buy a lot of cigars, I smoke a lot of cigars, and I can't keep up with burning them in my fire pit. I can't keep up with it. And I'm just one person.
Do a lot of manufacturers not offer a bundle option, or as a retailer, do you offer bundles if the manufacturer doesn't?
If they're available, we try to. We're not even really trying to be green. Really, it boils down to space. You can store more bundles in the same amount of space as a box. So you can get 1.5 bundles, say, into a box space. So you can have more inventory, but it boils down to the manufacturer charges the same amount for the bundle as they do for the box, and so the price ends up staying the same. If they wise up to this and they start offering a discount on the bundles, we're not going to have boxes stacked to the ceiling anymore.
Yeah. Well, that would be best case scenario. Whoever you need to talk to, make sure that you have that in the works in 3 months when we catch up so we can get the latest update. Now, I haven't.
I'll tell them it was your idea.
Please, yes, and free cigars for all the money I'm saving everybody. I haven't smoked it yet, but where do you fall on McAuliffe White compared to the other colors?
So controversial. It's a lot stronger than what I was expecting. I was expecting a 2 out of 10, maybe a 3. It's a 5, maybe 6 out of 10.
Oh.
It's not a mild cigar. It's a lot of flavor. They did a great job with it. And at a 5, 6, I think anybody can enjoy it. I mean, anytime you're smoking a cigar and it catches up to you and the nicotine's kind of holding you hostage, you put a little sugar under your tongue, take a sip of soda, something sweet, or slow down. Give it 2 minutes before your next puff and let the nicotine sort of dissipate and let the nootropic effects finish in your brain. That's what's happening is your brain believes that your blood sugar is low and it goes into panic mode and starvation mode, sending that signal to your stomach of you've got to eat something right now, and a little sugar under your tongue and the feeling goes away in seconds. So I believe that anybody can smoke the McAuliffe White, but I just don't believe that it's as mild as what they had hoped for.
I was going to say, were they pitching it at that 2 or 3, and then when you actually smoked it, you're like, wow, maybe times 2?
They're way too slick for that. They are very ambiguous in their marketing and in their literature.
Yeah.
Really what they were touting was this was the new color, which is very smart on their part. Also, in order to keep their price points as low as they are, you do sacrifice a little bit of consistency. If you buy a Padron Exclusivo now, or you buy a Padron, or you bought one 10 years ago, you're getting Padron Exclusivo. You're paying for it. They're $14 now, maybe $15. You're paying for it, but you know exactly what you're going to get. And there's Padron guys they'll smoke less cigars because the price is going up, but that's the cigar they're smoking.
You had kind of mentioned it as you were talking about the PCA, and I've seen it on their website. Do you have any intel on this new orange color from McAuliffe that's going to get released at some point?
All I know is from a balance sheet standpoint, the orange is going to round out their blending so that the tobacco that they're procuring, they can buy en masse and they can produce all the colors from those lots of tobacco without having to buy anything special. That's really what the color series is about, is having that whole series be vertically integrated with the readily available tobaccos that they can source. As far as blend information, I really haven't seen much about it, and Amanda was a little hush-hush on what the blend was going to be when she came in. I do believe she slipped and said it was going to be a Connecticut, but as far as the stuff that's on the inside, it's Nicaraguan components, and it's whatever they're missing priming-wise on the other stuff.
We did it last time you were on. We did a little Perdomo brand school, so I figured we would strike up school again as we get ready to close this segment and talk about a brand that we've mentioned a couple different times here during our segment already, which is Padron. So can you give us a little school on the brand Padron?
Yeah. So Padron, humble beginnings. They started in 1926. So when you look at Padron, the things that stand out are the lines 1926, 1964, and then their 1000 series. So they started in 1926, and they had a rich tobacco history in their family. Jose Orlando Padron grew up in Pinal del Rio in Cuba, and his grandfather Damaso, that's another one of their lines, Damaso, had established the family's legacy in the mid 1800s. And after the Cuban Revolution nationalized the tobacco farms in 1961, Jose fled Cuba first to Spain and then briefly to New York City, and did some odd jobs, and ends up in Miami, Florida, where when you see some of their cigars, they're called the Little Hammer. He started a little odd job company, and he just worked with this hammer that he had and did odd jobs, and eventually started in 1964. That's the other series, 1964, under the Piloto Cigar Company, or Cigars Incorporated. Just had one roller, making about 200 handmade cigars. They sold for 25 cents at the local Cuban American community center, and he wanted to do his best to recreate the flavors of Cuban tobacco. So he eventually ends up in Nicaragua with his family, and I would say by the 1970s, they're in Esteli and they're fairly established. And still to this day, there's no rep. I've been given one sample at one trade show, and I'm telling you, the order was in excess of $50,000 that I wrote. And I took the sample and I gave it to Dave because he's really the writing the check for the order. It didn't seem fair that I would get the only sample ever given by a Padron. And actually, that guy I never saw. He was new, not part of the family. Never saw him at another trade show again. So I think he may have been fired because he gave me a sample.
Could they be bigger if they had representation, or name requires no representation?
Really what it boils down to for them is that they're super consistent. There's other brands on the market that tout consistency that aren't all that consistent, or they're very rarely in stock. And you know, you hear the expression, and it's not just one company, but they all say something similar to, you know, we'll never rush the hands of time. A lot of that's bullshit. Padron does not rush the hands of time. If they aren't making the cigars, they stop making a few sizes just after COVID. And if they don't have the tobacco, they don't make the cigars, but mostly they're in stock. They take on a modest amount of new accounts. You have to pass the test with their 1000 series before you can get 64s, before you can get 26s, and certainly before you can get any of the more limited stuff in those little hammers and family reserve categories. So if you're willing to grow with them, they're willing to grow with you, and they just don't take on so many accounts that they can't service them, which if they had reps, then you run that risk.
Padron overhyped?
It really isn't. You could make the argument that there's other cigars on the market from Nicaragua that are at a lower price point, but when you lower the price point, you lower the consistency. So I'm going to say they're not overhyped, and they're just very good, and it's a fair price for what you're getting. It's not overpriced, but it's not underpriced either.
Many times on the Cigar Authority podcast, I hear a Padron smoker is the hardest person to get to smoke anything outside of the Padron portfolio. Why is that?
Bold flavors, man. It's Nicaraguan tobacco. The fillers come from Esteli, where they're located. It's nutrient dense soil. I mean, when Perdomo tried growing shade tobacco in Esteli under cheesecloth, they ended up with tobacco that fermented almost as dark as Maduro. that just speaks to the power of the sun and the fertility of the soil, deep, rich, volcanic soil that's 100 foot deep. So it's just difficult to recreate that with other brands. Plus, whatever their secret sauce is for pre-industry, whatever they're doing for fermentation, theirs is very unique. And once you've acquired a taste for that, do I think that Starbucks is the best coffee on the planet? No. But people that have acquired a taste for Starbucks, they don't go to Dunkin' Donuts.
I'm a big fan of the Perdomo 3000.
Padron 3000 is a great cigar.
Love it.
It's a great cigar.
It's not too expensive. Great flavor. Burns really well. It's got all the Nicaraguan things that I love about Nicaragua. And again, I don't feel like I'm getting put over the barrel.
The tobacco has less age on it. So I have a customer, his name's Kevin, and he buys Padron 3000 and he buys Padron Exclusivo. He alternates boxes. And I taught him how to dry box and how to age the cigars, and he's doing that with both of them. And you want to talk about being able to elevate a cigar. Padron's age better than almost anybody.
Best 5 cigar collection for the impending Father's Day.
Well, if we're going to stick with Padron, the 1964 selection has the 8-inch A size, which they don't even put boxes out of them very often. They save those larger wrappers for this sampler pack. They're not overly expensive, maybe $130 for the 5 cigars. They're all highly rated, and you get that A size. So if someone's a cigar smoker, they're going to see that and go, all right, you spent the extra money on me. I appreciate it.
Doing it the way nobody else can do it, breaking down the cigar world for us right here on the Barbecue Central show as he does every quarter. It's Mr. Jonathan. The cigarauthority.com is the website, or if you want to buy cigars, the number 2 guyscigars.com. Mr. J, always appreciate the time and the info. We'll see you in 3 months.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
You got it. Mr. J right there, doing it the way he only knows how to do, which is give you the best content he possibly can on the premium world of cigars. Robert Moss is ready to go. So we will not waste any time either. We'll come back right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Mr. Jonathan for joining us last segment. Again, the cigarauthority.com is the show website. The number 2 guyscigars.com to buy cigars. The segment is proudly sponsored by Fireboard, the innovators behind Fireboard 2, Fireboard Pro, Fireboard Spark, Fireboard Beacon, and the wireless Fireboard Pulse. Experience total control over all your devices from anywhere in the world with the Fireboard app. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. My next guest is the contributing barbecue editor for Southern Living Magazine, a 2023 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, and back after last month's offing is Robert Moss. Welcome back, Robert.
Well, thank you, Greg.
In Spain, you were in?
Yeah, we took a much anticipated long 2-week vacation to Spain. Ate a lot of ham. Yeah, ate a lot of other things. Drank a lot of good wine. So it was a good break.
You ate a lot of ham in Spain?
Yeah, yes, Iberico ham. They're sort of legendary for it. So
yes, probably
it's hard
something
not
we'll
to
get
eat
into.
ham if you're doing tapas in Spain.
Anything else in Spain that is top of mind you would like to tell us about?
Oh, I mean, there's so many things. It would take the whole segment to do it, but
Okay.
I'll just say the food in Spain is incredible. The wine is great everywhere you go, and I like their whole style of just eating small plates and grazing and eating all evening long. So we had a really good time.
I heard the locals hate Americans.
That was not our experience at all. So we had a very good, and we did spend some time with various local folks and things like that. So no, it was not. It was very welcoming for us.
Last time you were on the show, I forget what we were even talking about, but somehow we talked about ham, and then you said city ham and country ham. This was towards the end of the segment. I'm like, well, who the hell's never heard of city ham? I turned around in 2 weeks' time, asked the collective embedded correspondents if they had ever heard of city ham. Of course, John Solberg is the only one that had heard of and had tried city ham. Didn't seem over the moon about it, but said that the other guys had not even ever heard of city ham. Also, I had never heard of city ham. So you said, well, by the way, we could probably do a whole segment on ham. So I said, well, let's put it to the test. So here we are in May 2026. Everybody's been waiting for the ham segment, and now we are off and running. So as we talk about, and we have many times, the barbecue belt, I assume, as I'm starting to do my due diligence and research, there's something called a global ham belt that would connect Kentucky, Virginia to places like Spain and Italy. So is it just the climate, or is there a cultural thread that connects these specific regions as well?
Yeah, I have to say I am not really on board with the concept of a ham belt, at least not one that connects the U.S. with Europe. I think that's a easy thing that you might find people, food writers repeating, but if historically speaking, the reason Americans have what we call country ham today is that there was a big difference in climate between what is the ham belt in the United States, which you can think of as the states of Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, and where you find all the great, iconic hams of Europe, which would be the Spanish hams, Iberico ham, and prosciutto in Italy, the Westphalian and other Black Forest hams in Germany. Very different climates. In fact, if we go back to the history of how American ham is different than those European hams, the key is the climate. The climate was very different in Virginia when the colonists arrived there in the 17th, 18th century, and preserving pork with salt and air drying it was a long practice technique in Europe. Didn't work so great in Virginia because the summers were too hot, and that what would preserve a ham in Spain or in Italy or even in England just would not work in Virginia, and that's why the Virginians started introducing the smokehouse and smoking ham. So there is. I would take issue with the idea that there is any kind of connection between geographically. In fact, it's the opposite in terms of how ham originated.
When we look at American style or Southern style barbecue, a lot of low and slow cooking for the briskets and the whole hogs and this and that. Specifically to ham, I don't want to say like over the last 10 or 15 years, I've seen reference to double smoked ham, or you put it on your ceramic cooker, this and that. But this is a ham that's already been cooked. It's not something that's, starting out, I'm going to say raw, but, you can eat ham. Like you go into the store, you can open up a pack of ham, eat it. You can't do the same thing with chicken, or I guess you could do it with beef if you want to also get sick, but that's up to you. But you can do that with ham because it's cured or it's already been cooked or whatever. So you talk about double smoking, this and that. Did ham miss a moment to also have a seat on the offset cooker or the direct fire pits, or did it and we just don't know that much about it?
Well, it did have quite a bit of a moment as a barbecue meat in some parts of the United States. But if you go further back, if you're talking about the 19th century, ham is very different than barbecue. And there's a reason why barbecue and ham was not part of the barbecue menu, if you will, in the 19th century. And it all has to do with, like so many times I talk about the history of barbecue, it has to do with refrigeration. And, the fact that with no refrigeration, no real form of ice in the South, no way to get ice until the 20th century, you could only do so much with meat. If you are having a barbecue in July, you took the whole animals to the pits, to wherever the barbecue is being held outside, because you would have to slaughter them there and get them on the pits pretty quick. Because that, if it's 90 degrees in July, that meat's going to start going bad really quickly. The ham and the that whole tradition of making country ham developed as a different way of preserving meats in the South, particularly in Virginia and later Tennessee and Kentucky, and that happened in the winter at the hog killing time. And the whole idea of a ham was, well, first of all, when we talk about city ham, people now know the expression. It's really just what you would call ham today. Think of your honey baked ham, your spiral cut ham, the pink sort of big ham that you would carve up for Easter or something like that. That was originally, there wasn't such a thing in the old days. Originally, there was no country ham. It was just called ham. In fact, it was actually really called bacon. In the early days, the term bacon was actually a generic term for smoked beets. So you can actually see ads of like the 1810s where some merchants saying, I've got 400 pounds of bacon, a mix of hams, shoulders, and midlands, which is what we would call bacon today, which is the bellies. The bellies were called midlands. So bacon was a generic term for smoked pork, which later became a very specific term here in the U.S. for bellies, though Canadian bacon, you may know, is actually pork loin, and it gets even more complicated when you go overseas. But anyhow, you couldn't preserve pork in the United States, and in the South in particular, except when it was really cold outside in the winter. So a hog killing would always happen in November, maybe December, when the weather got cold, because you need several cold days below, at freezing or around freezing, so that the meat wouldn't, spoil. But while you were prepping it, you kill the pigs, you would drain all the blood out, use the blood to make, blood pudding, render all the fat down to lard. I mean, every bit of the hog would get used up. And so what was left after and all the entrails and everything would go into usually it was called haslet at the time, HASLET, a generic term for all the entrails of a hog. Those often went into a pot, and boiled. That's what we actually came to be called hash. So the hash of the Carolinas is actually a corruption of the term haslet for all the guts and innards that were left over at a hog killing, which you put in a pot. All the big lean pieces of meat, so your shoulders, your loins, your bellies, and then the hams would be cured. In Europe, in Spain and Italy, they would salt them and then hang them in air cure them. No smoke, right? And the climate over there would allow that, and they would keep for they'd be cured for sometimes 12, 24, 36, even 48 months. In the U.S., that wouldn't last. So that meat would rot in the summer because it was too hot, it was too humid. And so what the Virginians found was they could hang the hams and the shoulders and the bellies in a smokehouse, give them a good dose of smoke for a couple of weeks, and then that would preserve them and keep them for a long time. So what we think of now as country ham, back then just ham was a ham that was preserved and in smoke in a smokehouse. It was a way of preserving meat, and if you could, it would actually last for you'd be good for several years, particularly if you put it back in a smokehouse every couple of months for a little extra dose of smoke. It gave it that extra preservation.
Is prosciutto a ham then, for all intents?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it is. It's very similar to the Spanish Iberico ham that I ate so much of. And if you actually go to Spain, and you can actually sort of see, actually on my Instagram, I think you'll see, I was at an event here in Charleston not too long ago that had a ham. It's actually the leg, the back leg of a pig. And in Spain, they'll put them on a big rack, the hoof and all, so you can see the little trotter at the end of the pig, and you carve it real thin because this is very aged meat. That is, if you think of how prosciutto is, it's not soft and pink. It's almost hard and very firm. You carve it very, very thin. So yeah, prosciutto, Iberico ham, Serrano ham, all those are sort of that classic European style cured ham. That's delicious, but very, very different than barbecue and not at all smoked.
Would you say Iberico ham and I think prosciutto automatically, most consumers that are even within that knowledge realm think prosciutto expensive. Quarter pound, substantially more expensive than whatever ham. Is ham in America just not reaching that kind of level of luxury ham as a prosciutto or an Iberico?
Well, I think it's had its moment in the last 10, 15 years where, it depends on what types of restaurants you're going to, et cetera. But I think, you can go to lots of any place that's serving charcuterie or a lot of tapas bars. They'll have their good imported hams. There was a bit of a trend, country ham really all but disappeared over the course of the 20th century, particularly at the latter part of the 20th century, the 70s and 80s. All these little artisanal, sort of country ham producers out in the sticks started closing their doors. But there are just a couple of them that are left. And there was sort of a big movement in starting around 2005, 2010, where a lot of chefs sort of rediscovered these country hams. And you can almost name them on one hand. There's Newsom's Country Hams, Edward and Son. Newsom's is out of Kentucky, Edwards and Son is out of Virginia. And then one that I know well, it's actually not too far up the road from where Steve Ray is in Ottawa, Tennessee. It's actually called Benton's Country Hams in Madisonville, Tennessee. They make splendid bacon and splendid country ham. Benton sort of became this like really hip. All the New York chefs were buying Benton's Country Ham and putting it and slicing it thin and all that. So if you were, in any of those kind of cool, hipster restaurants around 2010 or 2012, you probably had some Benton's Country Ham on some kind of charcuterie plate.
Is there anything else we need to know about ham?
Well, you're going back to the double smoked ham and all that, which I think there are two ways you can have ham and barbecue. One is that the ham is just the backside of the pig, so it's very much like a pork shoulder, but it comes from the rear end of the pig. So you can do smoked hams just like you would a pork shoulder. In fact, like places like I think Maurice's in Columbia, there are some barbecue joints who do exclusively use hams for their pulled or chopped pork. So that's one way to do it. But in Kansas City and in some other places as well, you'll see city ham or pit ham, as they also sometimes call it, which is your classic wet cured, more modern ham, which was not hung in a smokehouse and dried for a year. It was flash brined and maybe got a little bit of a dose of smoke. But in Kansas City, they would actually put that on the pit and let it smoke for a couple hours. And I'm a big fan of it. It really picks up a lot of nice flavors and everything. So if you see a double smoked ham, that's usually what you might call a city ham or a more conventional modern industrial ham that's been given it a little extra dose of smoke to give it some flavor.
You shit on pulled ham, though, right?
I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of pulled pork to begin with. So in the Carolinas, we like our pork chopped. So if you're going to do a ham, slice it. Don't get it such up the temperature that it starts to fall apart. Keep it a little bit with a little texture to it.
Couple minutes left, and this is news breaking over the last 48 hours or so. But Rodney Scott, who everybody knows as being a huge barbecue icon, originally starting at Scott's Barbecue, opening up a series of his own restaurants. What can you tell us from a truth perspective? Because I've seen a lot of know-it-alls jump on people making comments about, all of Rodney Scott's barbecue locations immediately closed. Guy doesn't know how to run this. Guy doesn't know how to run that. I'm not going to jump to any of those conclusions because I don't know what Rodney knows about running business or not. It does appear that he is involved with a group of people. What do you know to be the truth? And is there a way out of this at some point?
Yeah, so I've not talked to Rodney, so I don't have any inside scoop from him and what's going on that side of things. From the very beginning, when Rodney Scott's Barbecue here in Charleston opened up, it was as part of the Piecas restaurant group. So Nick Piecas used to he and his dad founded Jim and Nick's many years ago. They ended up selling that to a private equity firm, and then he founded Piecas Restaurant Group, which invested a lot of other restaurants as well. So there's the Joyland, which is Sean Brock's burger joint. There was sort of a Piecas Restaurant Group, Little Donkey, a bunch of other ones down in particularly around Birmingham where the group was based. So from the beginning, that was Rodney sort of partnered up. That was his business partner. I think a lot of the financing, everything was coming from Piecas. I think also that's part of the push behind his. He's expanded quite a lot. So he had 2 restaurants in Alabama, or 3 at one point. Now, one in Atlanta, one in Nashville, and they were working on one in Miami. Now, what I don't know, and I've not gotten any intel, is how much was the sort of the personality, the Rodney Scott and Rodney Scott's, or the Sean Brock and Shoyland, how much were they involved in the business side of the operations, the finance side of it, and how much were they more? Now, Rodney was very much involved in the building the restaurants and the cooking and the technique and everything else. That is, we don't know, and it's not come out yet. But it's pretty clear that the Piegas Group, just in general, not any one particular restaurant, all the restaurants got way out. Expanded very fast, got over their heads in debt, and then weren't able. Classic story. Weren't able to meet, all the bills that had coming due, all the notes, construction costs, supplier loans, and that kind of thing. And ultimately, it got too big, and a bunch of lawsuits, and they've shut down. Now, I've not heard anything about Rodney Scott's barbecue in particular. I do know that I do believe all the locations are currently closed. This does not include Scott's Barbecue in Hemingway, which was the original Scott's. That's now run by Rodney's uncle and his son. Not involved in the Piegas Group at all. That's a completely different thing. But the other ones are currently closed. I say temporarily closed. Some of the other restaurants in the Piegas Group have already reorganized and reopened the doors under sometimes different names. They go find other investors. I'm not sure what deal they worked out to be able to, get control of the business and reopen. I'll be curious to see what happened with Rodney Scott's. I mean, I don't know. I've not heard anything yet. I think it's a matter of time, and I'm sure there's stuff going on behind the scenes, but that's as much as I know at this date.
Robert Moss breaking ham all the way down, as we knew this was going to happen this month. So looking forward to the reaction from the Centralites on that, and then giving us what he knows on the Rodney Scott situation at present time. Robert, always appreciate the time and info, and we'll see you in June.
Yep. Thanks, Greg. Talk to you then.
Robert Moss. By the way, robertfmoss.com is his website, and make sure that you're signing up for the Q sheet. Always a great read, and you can stay up on all the stuff that Robert is reporting on, giving you his take on. Great read. Steve Ray is in the chat, getting ready to jump on here in about 15 minutes from now, so looking forward to catching up with Steve, talking about a little Joe Chestnut. Forgot to ask Robert what his take on deep dish or thin crust pizza is. We'll get an update here in a second. All right, so let's get ready to head to that second hour. We'll wrap the first coming back, so stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
We thank our pal, Robert Moss. robertfmoss.com. And again, sign up for that Q sheet. I have seen a lot of reckless commenting on the situation that Rodney Scott finds himself in. Rodney, also a two-time guest on this show, believe it or not. Are we predicting another Rodney Scott tour event where he raises a bunch of money to get out or pull out one of those restaurants from the Piegas Group and become sole owner? I'm about to say something like I'm an expert on this, and I'm not, so let me preface this. I don't know a lot of single owner operators in the restaurant game. Like, it's expensive to own restaurants. Typically, somebody opening up a real restaurant. I'm not talking about a Tasty Freeze, something like this, like a Jerry's Dairy Pride, where they're killing you on prices. I mean, they're making a mint over. Real restaurants. That involves real money, usually investors. Typically, a guy like Rodney's licensing his name, getting some gross every month. I don't know what their setup was, but it's tough to be a single operator owner. All right, we're pointing to the second hour. Refresh your libations. We'll come back. We'll get a poll update, and then we'll talk with Steve Ray. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central show right here on the Barbecue Central Network. Stick around. We'll be right back.